Today, I'm going to show you in this PowerPoint presentation how to make your own ultrasound model. Professional ultrasound models retail for about $400. In this PowerPoint and video, I'm going to here are some basic reasons for using ultrasound-guided IV access. Bariatric patients, intravenous drug users, the very young, the very old, dialysis patients. A good rule of thumb is that after 3 attempts at obtaining normal IV access, you should start considering ultrasound-guided IV access. On this slide, you can see what's known as a blue phantom. The blue phantom is the most widely available commercial model designed to practice ultrasound-guided IV access. As you can see at the bottom of the slide, it retails for about $400. In addition, you're about guaranteed to get 300 to 400 sticks for every blue phantom. So using some simple math, 400 sticks divided by $400 is an average cost of about $1 per stick. These are the items that you're going to need to make the model we're discussing today. Gelatin, plastic container, bamboo skewer, tea kettle, microwave, or some means to heat water, a refrigerator, or some means to cool the media after it's made. You can even leave it outside if it's cold enough. Now, before we make the model that we're going to discuss today, I want to go over some other models that I've made in the past, discuss why mine is different, and why I think it's important for the novice user. If you want to see how these other models have been made, you can find them in the references sheet at the end of this PowerPoint presentation. You can see right off the bat that this is different from the model I'm making because there are 2 1/4-inch drains, Penrose drains, in the middle of this model. They're knotted at each end and filled with water, and they're meant to represent blood vessels. Because of the Penrose drains, media was poured into this container, allowed to cool, the drains were placed on top, and then more media was poured on top of the drains. All in all, this process took about 4 to 5 hours. The model we're making today or discussing took about 2 to 2.5 hours. In addition, you can see that the media or the gelatin material is very dark. That was done by adding powdered metamucil fiber to the media. We'll discuss later why I think it's important at this point for novice users to use clear media in the model. Now, in this model, I want you to notice several things. One, it's going to use clear gelatin media, which I'll also use in my model. 2, what I will not use is pay attention to the size of the tubing that's used to represent blood vessels in this model. They're so large it appears that one of the tubes you could stick a thumb into the blood vessel. Now, these tubes are just simply much too large for our purposes to practice obtaining IV access. It simply seems that if we had venous access this large, we wouldn't need ultrasound-guided assistance. This is more applicable maybe for arterial access or arterial practice. This is the packs of Knox gelatin that I bought, about the 32 envelope pack. This costs approximately $9.99. This is the packaging for the Glad plastic containers that I purchased, and this was a 4-pack, and it's a small container size. You can see from this slide that I took a bamboo skewer and pierced the Glad container on both sides. The purpose is when I pour the media inside this container, after it cools, I'm simply going to remove the skewer, and the cavity that was created is going to represent the blood vessel for our model. After piercing the Glad container, I used a pair of shears to trim the skewer. This was just done to make it easier to store in the refrigerator for cooling. Now in this slide you can see 2 Glad containers, one that's pierced and 4 packets of gelatin. What you're going to do is mix hot water with the gelatin in the container on the left. You can add enough water so you make enough media to completely submerge the skewer in the container on the right. Now, after the media is allowed to cool, you simply remove the skewer, and you can see that the cavity that created is going to represent our blood vessel. I put a penny on the outside of the container to give you some kind of graphical representation to see how deep this blood vessel is. It's 1 penny in diameter deep, which is 0.75 inches or 1.9 centimeters. You can easily see if this was below the skin, we would not be able to palpate it to access it for IV access without the ultrasound. Now, on this slide, there are several things I want you to notice. One, of course, is that the media is clear, nothing was added, and I'm going to go into a little bit of detail why I think that's important for the novice practitioner. Second, this is of a longitudinal view. This means that on the right you can see that the probe is in linear position to the needle cannula the practitioner is using. What this gives you is the side view of the blood vessel. What's so important about the side view is that it allows you to make sure you do not completely perforate the blood vessel at the top and the bottom. And I also want you to notice that in this view, the transducer or the probe, the ultrasound, is not moving at all. The only thing that's moving is the IV catheter or the needle cannula. Now, what's important in this view, which is known as the transverse view, the probe is held perpendicular to the needle cannula. And what you're seeing is the front or the back view. You're seeing a circle, and that silver dot or slash on top of the circle is the needle cannula. The other thing that I want you to notice is notice how the transducer, the probe, is moving from left to right. That's being done because the user wants to make sure the probe is right at the tip of the cannula. You always want to know where the tip of the cannula is because you don't want to perforate the entire blood vessel. You can ask yourself what the purpose of this view is. If you have to move the transducer, it seems like it would be easier to only use the longitudinal view. Well, the point is, it's a lot easier to find blood vessels using the transverse view. So after you find the blood vessel, simply rotate the probe so it's in longitudinal position. Then you can see the entire blood vessel without having to move it. Here you can see the actual blue phantom in use. Note that this is in longitudinal view because of how the transducer is held. Also note that there are hash marks on the transducer, and we're going to go into that later. This is the transverse view of the blue phantom on the ultrasound. The circle is the blood vessel. The little white silver dot or slash in the circle is the needle cannula. And once again, from this view, you can't be exactly sure that the needle cannula has not completely perforated the blood vessel. And this is again the blue phantom, but the longitudinal view under ultrasound. And you can see under the longitudinal view that the needle cannula has only perforated the top but not the bottom of the blood vessel. And this is, of course, the blue phantom next to a whole model with clear gelatin. You could see that the longitudinal view shows that the needle cannula has not completely perforated the blood vessel top and the bottom. Now this is a picture of myself using the portable ultrasound machine. I want you to notice that everything is in a line, meaning there's the ultrasound screen, the media, the transducer, which I'm holding with my right hand, and also that media is meant to represent the patient's arm, forearm or upper arm, so I don't have to look over behind me or look over my right shoulder or left shoulder and also try to maintain visual contact with the transducer and the patient. So everything is in a line. It's going to make it a lot easier for you. Now this is the visual comparison of all three models. The first one is myself, the model we made today using the techniques I showed you earlier. And you can see that the slash on top is the needle cannula just as it enters the blood vessel. And if you look closely, you could see the top of the blood vessel is tented or bent and it shows it just before it perforates it. As you can see it also in the clear media on the other model that was created. And of course you can see the longitudinal view of the Blue Phantom. You can see how they're all similar, except of course the Blue Phantom cost approximately $419, and the model I made it cost approximately $3. Now this is the top view of what you saw earlier. Now you could see the hash marks and the little nub on the transducer itself, and why that's important is that hash mark and that nub corresponds to the left side of your ultrasound screen. Also, whatever is below that center nub is also what you're going to see on the ultrasound screen. Note that I'm holding a needle cannula approximately 45 degrees. Also note that you could see the blood vessel, which is the cavity that was left when I removed the bamboo skewer. Notice that because the media is clear, I know where the blood vessel is, or the representative blood vessel, and this model is allowing me to solely practice using the transducer and the needle and the screen. At this point, I don't really need to go further to practice finding the blood vessel. I just need to practice the physical interaction of those three things. And after I get those down, or after you get them down, you can go to Progress and add Metamucil and make the whole media more opaque and even make it harder for yourself. This page is of course my contact information if anyone has any questions. And one last thought is, if you find that you're having too much artifact on your ultrasound screen from your model, from too many repeated sticks, all you need to do is put some tape on either side of the perforation left by the bamboo skewer, heat it up in a microwave, let it gel, the cavity will close, filter out any additional material that may have fallen or contaminated the media, and go ahead and refreeze that. And once of course it's hardened, go ahead and pull the skewer out again, and you'll hold a brand new model without having to start from scratch. And lastly, of course, I